and thanks for joining me for Fundraising 101, presented by the Office of Student Inclusion and Involvement. My name is Holly Anderson, and I'm the intern for OSI this semester. Our overview for today is going through policy review, types of fundraising, things to consider, and we have a bonus slide for sponsorship. First, starting with policy overview. It's important to note, as student organizations at Edgewood College, all fundraising activities must be approved by OSI. Super easy to contact them. I have their email provided on the slide, which is osii, O-S-I-I, @edgewood.edu. You can contact them and they can walk through what you're looking to do and go through the solicitation policy with you. It's definitely one where if you have not seen the solicitation policy, I suggest emailing them to receive a copy of it. It's going to go through things like bake sale rules, safety guidelines for food handling, donation drive requirements, flyer and poster information, and table and space reservations. So all the different things that you need to be successfully fundraising while you're on campus at Edgewood College. It's also important that even if you are choosing to fundraise currently while we are not on campus, still contact and they still have to be approved by OSI. There's a little bit different ways to fundraise when we're not in person or being able to be on Edgewood campus, and we'll go through that in the next slide. So the three types of fundraising that are the most common are donation campaign, or a straight ask, a product base where you make something and sell it, or service base where you contact local businesses and provide service. So going back to the donation campaign, this is a lot of times a straight ask of a product or of money. So it could be, I see this happen in two different ways with organizations. One is they're supporting another, maybe a not-for-profit or another community partner that they work with, and they're asking for food donations, clothing donations, or doing some type of drive, where a lot of times you can provide bins. Again, if you talk to OSI, the OSI staff, they can hook you up with the bins around campus so that you can advertise that and have different campus and community partners bringing the donations straight to Edgewood College. Not going to be a great one for right now, but a donation, a straight ask can still occur, just in an online fashion. And we're going to talk about the online fundraising ideas after we get through these three common kinds. So moving into the product base, where it's where you make something and sell it. A lot of times I've seen with student orgs, they make egg rolls and sell them. I've seen like fritters, baked goods, of course. A really, really common one is running a bake sale. That's a super great one for, again, when we're in person. People can donate their time, they can bake. If they're not great at baking, they can sit at the table and sell. Again, something where you typically make a product, but it doesn't just have to be food. And I'd really encourage you right now during our COVID-19 to not actually make food and make something that would be a different type of project. So I've seen some people make crafts. I work at UW-Whitewater and I go to school there as a student, and there's a gardening club, and I've seen them make succulent plants or provide kits to folks for a small fee, and then they do an online web session and make the succulent plants together, which has been really cool. So there's definitely different ways that you can think of to make online things. Maybe it's cards, maybe there's something else that your org does that makes a lot of sense. It could also be a prepackaged or pre-bought food. So it could be like a type of soda or a candy, something like that, that we're not as worried about the handling. We're limiting that handling essentially. And hopefully the company that you work with to buy that product is using safe practices right now. And then the last one would be service-based. So that would be contacting local businesses and seeing if they would allow you to come in to work with them for a fraction of the profit that they make that day. So usually the small businesses I know of, or some of the larger corporate businesses would be Qdoba, Rocky Rococo's, Culver's. All of them have like donation nights where each one works a little bit differently, but like for Culver's for example, if you go in, typically you serve food to the people. Again, probably not as possible right now, but typically you would go serve food and then 10% of that profit from that night would come to your organization. So you could definitely contact the businesses and see if they're still doing these types of nights. maybe they're not obviously open and handling that food to the public, but maybe they're doing something else to support organizations like yourself. So definitely still call and ask and see who is doing what, who's offering what, and what can still be done for fundraising for organizations. So moving into the online fundraising ideas, so a few that I've kind of pulled together. A really popular one right now is running a Facebook fundraiser. You can connect with a local group, especially if you're part of like a national organization or a larger philanthropy. You can connect with them to raise money, um, to just straight ask. So that would be a campaign that you would run on social media, specifically Facebook, of course, and people who are interested in donating could donate straight to that. I've also seen some orgs run donations themselves through something like a GoFundMe. And they'll do something where, like, if X amount is raised, they'll do something funny like smash an egg on, like the president will smash an egg and take a video of that, or get like a whipped cream pie to the face. It doesn't have to necessarily be a funny thing. You could also do something that makes sense for your organization. So maybe you're a music organization, and when you reach a certain X amount of money, you'll put on a Zoom performance or a WebEx performance, where people and members of your organization can play their instruments and or sing or do, maybe it's slam poetry, something like that, where you can reward the donations coming in. There's also you can still run events and speakers, and request or do like sell tickets essentially for those. So essentially, if you maybe bring an online speaker, maybe talk to that online or that speaker to see if they would donate their time for free. Maybe it's a professor or someone you have a connection with. That doesn't mean that we want to assume that their time will be free. Any way that we can compensate someone for what they're doing is great. But if that's something, you can always ask, and if they're willing to do that, that's awesome. But you could, promote your event, your activity still online, and give people, like on WebEx, for example, when there's a code, if they pay their ticket fee, then they get an email with their code to be able to join. We want to make sure to be reasonable with things that we're charging here, though. We don't want something, especially as student orgs, if you're really active and really have a great semester going right now online and you think your following is going to be there, then maybe you could charge a little bit more. But we want to be realistic of what we're asking for ticket prices, and depending on who you get too, right? It's all going to matter for the price of what you charge is what you're offering as a service. And then another option too is if you don't want to bring in a speaker or have some type of online event that you could do something like run a trivia night. You could teach a skill. You could put on a performance. Maybe your group can make something. Again, something where you're doing another type of like webinar type scenario where you are offering the services of your org for what you're known for doing already, or something fun, again, like making something together, the trivia night. And kind of the same way where, or maybe it's Jackbox Games and you set it up in WebEx, use that code, and when they pay the fee to get in, then they get that code. I've seen a lot of people too, instead of emailing out early, email out that code like an hour before your event is going to happen, so that hopefully people aren't sharing that without paying, that type of thing. There's also an option to still sell like the prepackaged food or product that we talked about. Again, I would avoid making anything right now, but maybe there's a lot of different people who need different things, who are like different things. So ask around in your group and see what kind of skills your members have. Maybe someone's really good at sewing. Maybe someone makes some type of art. Maybe there's something there where, we want to, again, be respectful of the fact that this could be something that this person does as part of their job, or is like something that they've worked really hard to gain as a skill. So if it is a member, again, we can always ask to see if they could donate that time. But if it's a lot that they're making for something to sell as a fundraiser, then maybe some type of compensation, maybe a gift card that you use, or something like that. But see what's out there, and then you could make something and then sell that to people. We just want to take into consideration that shipping is going to cost more because you have to individually ship it to everyone. Some ways I've seen this happen is there's online places that you can buy like pastries from, or some other type of prepackaged food that you can have people Like you could do a bulk order of it, and then again, you have to ship it out to everybody. Sometimes companies will directly ship it to people. You just kind of have to ask to the company, but see if there's anyone out there that is willing to do that as a donation drive. Think similar to like Girl Scout cookies, but being kind of a third party for that. And then lastly, a lot of people right now are doing text to give campaigns. Definitely something that is popular that we see where people can text in and donate their money. Sometimes that's easier. You don't have to think much about it. You see it come through, you text it in, and it's as simple as that. Just make sure that you're researching what provider you would do that with, and make sure that they are reasonable in their fees and reasonable in what they're offering, and that they have hopefully some positive feedback and reviews online before using them. So some things to consider when you're thinking about fundraising is how much money is invested in the front end. So again, you know, this is a lot of times we see this one in a bake sale is if you're making really elaborate things and then only selling them for a couple dollars, was it really worth all the ingredients, the time that you put in, all of that investment? What does that look like? Especially now in online, if we are going to do a product drive or some type of product fundraiser, thinking about that shipping, is it worth it? Is the shipping going to just cost way too much? If you're in a smaller community or you have someone who has accessible to a car and can do it in a safe way right now, can there be touchless contact deliveries, similar to what all the different food DoorDash, Eat Street, things like that are doing, where they no contact delivery type thing could be a good solution for if you make a product, especially if you're making it for friends and family that live in the area, or professors, staff members, things like that. And again, you have someone who has the ability to have a car and be able to do those touchless drop-offs. But really just thinking about how much money is going in. Do you have the money in your organization to already pay for that? Do you have to front that money prior and then get reimbursement? Is that something that's fair to ask of your members? So really, there's a lot of considerations when fundraising, which is why a lot of people will do just straight ask, like on a GoFundMe page. And then another thing to consider is how many people can you really count on? So if someone says they're willing to donate their time or donate their services, donate a product, get that in writing, some type of email or some type of thing that you can rely back to that, but also be reasonable. Hopefully your members, hopefully they're friends, and if someone is just really stressed out right now at the end of the semester, that might not be the best time to ask on something. So maybe rethinking what type of fundraiser you're looking to do. And then another thing when we're back, especially when we're back on campus, and just in general, is what fundraisers are you competing against? So luckily at Edgewood College, the policies are in place where I think multiple fundraisers cannot be taking place at one time, especially in no donation drives. But you never want to run into the issue where multiple people are running bake sales at the same time, or multiple people are running, gift campaigns at the same time, especially in a smaller campus like Edgewood College. If we're asking professors, students to donate to this one, and then there's another one happening at the same time, you're kind of pulling that same target audience. So just being conscious of who's doing what and when is definitely an important thing to consider. And then lastly, know what your message is. So the sale or the ask should really be about how this benefits your group and how it benefits the buyer. So it's super easy when you have a product that you're giving to them, then that's what's benefiting the buyer, is the buyer gets a cupcake. Not as easy when it's a straight ask or donation. So that's when we really have to be cognizant of what it is that's benefiting your group. So if you have a specific goal that you want to use the money for, it's really great to talk about that. Like, hey, we're hoping to go to this conference in December, or we are hoping to bring this speaker so that we can do a free webinar session for all of our students and staff faculty members. Something like that, just having clear ideas to give to who's buying or who's donating. This can really help sell and can really help make it more important. So donation drives definitely go best when you know exactly how that's benefiting. So, if it's working with let's say a rescue group, you're helping to feed dogs and cats, that type of thing. That pulls on the heartstrings a little bit more than just saying, hey, we want this money because one day we'll do something with it. Just doesn't sound as good. So some tips and tricks, kind of going right off of those things to consider are know your goals. So know, again, what you're raising the money for. Why do you need this money? What is it going to do to benefit you? Know what you're asking for and why. Know exactly what, if you are doing like a straight ask, know exactly like, hey, I have this volunteer appreciation because we ran this big event, or we have a membership appreciation and we're looking for items to give away in a, maybe it's a auction, or we're looking to give something to each of our members for this great year. But just knowing exactly and identifying what that is and why do you need it. Really start planning early. Successful fundraising events are successful because typically they're planned out. They know what is required, who's committing, how is it committing, what time is it coming, what time are you going to be there, who's going to be running it, what is that ask, what is your reason behind it. There's a lot of components to it, and I see a lot of groups not do so well when they're just like, hey, let's throw a bake sale together, let's do it next week, and that's really not enough time to tell campus, faculty, and staff what's happening. So you want to make sure you leave yourself enough time for marketing and promotion of your fundraiser to really, get excitement going, kind of create a buzz so that people are ready to buy. If you just let people stumble into it, that works, but it's just not going to be as successful, especially if people have to have cash for something. You definitely want to pre-plan that, or I always see the best posters for something type of fundraiser is it tells you how you can support. Do you have a card reader? Is it cash only? Things like that. Make sure when you are, if you're asking a place of business, organization, or a different entity for money, that you research them first. Sometimes they'll have a strong history of donating or supporting student organizations. Again, like Culver's, Qdoba, Rocky Rococo's, those are all really well-known places in the community that like to support local entities, especially students. So just know who you're asking. It doesn't mean that if someone doesn't have a history that they won't. They could find that your mission and what you're asking for really aligns with theirs as well. But it's always good to do some research and know who's donating, who's not, who is known for that philanthropy in their community. Also, make sure to thank those that donate. Take that time. Right now, it could be an email that you send out. There's e-cards that you can send. Maybe it's a quick little message on your social media, maybe like a 1-minute Instagram video thanking the people and then tagging them if they have social media. Things like that. There's a lot of different ways to thank them, but you want to make sure you thank them in an appropriate amount of time. So I always suggest thanking within the couple weeks after your event is run. Any further than that, it just kind of feels like you forgot. I'm sure it's still appreciated, but we want to make sure that we're really showing that appreciation for what they gave. If you're doing a larger campaign or just in general, like you run a fundraiser, that's when I suggest just doing a blanketing thank you, like thank you to all those who donated. This is how much we raised. This is what we're going to be using it for. These are our plans. Then you're having that transparency again, and you are having that ability to again be transparent is the big one, and to come back down to that thank you. Thank your volunteers for all the same reasons, those who put in that time. This is where you can shout people out, especially if your members are following you on your social media. Again, you can send out a message, maybe in your next meeting, you take 5 minutes of that meeting time to thank those who contributed to your fundraiser. And then when you're done, make sure to evaluate. So what went well, what didn't go well, what could you learn for later? Take notes, put those in your meeting notes so there's a history of that for people to use in the next semester, next year, that type thing, especially if you like to do your fundraising is just a way that you generate the majority of your income. You want to make sure that you know, again, what went well, what didn't go well, what didn't you think of, what was something that went spectacular, and you want to repeat things like that. Our minds tend to forget as we continue with our days, and in 6 months I probably won't remember exactly everything I did to have a successful fundraiser, so it's great to write those things down. And then last but not least, our bonus slide of sponsorship. So sponsorships are great. They're a fantastic way to get excess money, especially when you're running an event, a program, again, maybe having a speaker, or just doing any type of sponsorship where someone gives you money essentially. but they're not just giving you money as a straight donation, as a flat donation. A sponsorship is truly, they are paying for you to advertise their business. So it's a mutually beneficial kind of give, where like some examples I've seen is, do you have t-shirts that you can add their logo to? Maybe you promote on all of your printed material and promote them on social media. If you are having an event or a program, where can you highlight them? Can you have a slide and a PowerPoint presentation? If it's a physical event that you're having, can you have a table there that they can promote themselves at? There's just a lot of different ways when you think of sponsorship, but it's definitely, you want to make it worth whatever money or time or whatever they're donating to you. And it doesn't just have to be, again, money. Like I said, it could be time. So maybe somebody is donating, you have a large event and you need volunteers to run different spaces of that event, and they're willing to have 5 of their members or team come and donate their time. Then again, we want to reward that because they're going to be there. So, you say on your event social media campaign that, you can see so and so here donating their time to help as our volunteers. Printed material on your flyer, you can have their logo. Most companies will email you their logo to make sure that you can use that. But anywhere you can shout them out is definitely going to be what helps those sponsorships. And sometimes prior to, when you're asking for that or you're negotiating a sponsorship, it's great to have that in writing, exactly what they want, what you can provide, and what you can follow through on. What you don't want to do is promise something that you can't follow through on. So make sure it's realistic what you're offering them as a sponsorship, and that it's, beneficial to both of you. So that is all of our Fundraising 101 today. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, if you have questions, definitely email us at osii@edgewood.edu. That's OSII at edgewood.edu. Bye.